Hi, and welcome to the National Millennial Community Radio segment. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself. My name is LJ Furman. I'm from Western Connecticut State University and currently live in New York. And I'm here with my colleague, Jessica. Let Jessica introduce herself.
Hello, listeners. My name is Jessica Chubb, and I am a senior marketing student at Tennessee Tech.
So today we're here to hold a conversation with millennials about Gen Z. So we have three guests. So I'm going to let their guests introduce themselves.
Well, LJ, I'm Jacob Lipp. I'm the Director of Corporate Relations at the University of Houston downtown, and I am the resident non-millennial. I'm actually a Gen X father of two Gen Z sons.
My name is Brooke Collick, and I am an MBA student at the University of Houston downtown.
Thank you for the intro, LJ. My name is Adonis Shavarin, and I am from Eastern Oregon University.
So the topic of the discussion today is advice to Gen Z. That's the younger generation after the millennial generation. So let's just jump right into it. Gen Z is facing a really interesting time in our lives where it's a new and diverse climate. So what advice can we provide them entering into this new kind of zone?
Well, I think, as somebody here who on a daily basis is giving advice to my two little Gen Z ambassadors, my primary thing that I want for them to take away is just to be good people, really. That, there's to some extent there's a competency in technology and reading, writing, all those sorts of things. They're equally important for Gen Z as they were for my generation and for millennials. But the degree to which you can make interpersonal connections, that I think is going to be the real difference maker for people going forward.
I agree with you, Jacob. Also, that I'm a high school teacher, so I teach Gen Z as well, and I try to give the advice on they need to focus on what their intrinsic motivation is. I know a lot of my students are focused on the monetary value of things and want to make a lot of money, but I also am trying to push them to figure out what they want in life, and that's one thing that I think they need to do starting as young as they can, is trying to decide what they want to do in life and where they want to be and what motivates them.
Yeah, so let me dive into that a little bit, Brooke. So, how can they find their intrinsic motivation so young? What's some of the guidance that you're giving them?
Well, I work at a very different type of high school, so we have different career pathways that these students can be a part of. So I think being able to choose between these pathways at such a young age, going into high school, so they're eighth graders when they're deciding, is a big help. Like, for example, even if they choose the business pathway, which is what I teach, and they decide that's not really for them, I've helped them get one step closer to what they really want to do. So whether it's a good experience or a bad experience on what career pathway they want to get into, it gets them one step closer to what they want.
So
That's beautiful there. I just want to touch a little bit on when you said a little bit previously, Jacob, on building interpersonal relationships. And I feel that realizing that your emotional quotient is going to be of high value in your future career, and actually taking the time to actually be one with your feelings and not necessarily go based off of what you're conditioned to. Work for what you want, basically establish what you need to do, make a plan, and execute. You were just talking about what you do for your students, and it's a great concept. You're building the leaders of tomorrow, and that's amazing.
Yeah. So Brooke is talking about finding your intrinsic motivation, and I know, Adonis, you're just about to graduate. So maybe you can provide some context into how you found your intrinsic motivation, or maybe you haven't found it yet and you're still searching.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that, LJ. Thank you. Well, my intrinsic motivation. Well, what can I say? Don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, I look at the extrinsic motivations, but I guess you could say it's an internal flame that just does not seem to die out. My intrinsic motivation, I have to say, would be my great support system. I've had the privilege to have mentors that they saw something in me that I didn't, and that has pushed me to to take on challenges and take every day as it is and work as hard as I can and develop, as we were previously saying, build those relationships that I need to do and network with who I need to network with to get where I want to be, if that makes sense, if that answers your question, LJ.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to hear from Jessica, because I know you're in a similar situation, so maybe you can explain some of your motivating factors and, how you're finding your way.
My motivational factors have to be people. I enjoy working with people on a day-to-day basis, and I like what Adonis says about seeking mentors. I think mentors are very important in driving your success, just for having that guidance for somebody that's been in your shoes. My advice would be to the generation afterwards is to seek out those mentors and seek out those people that's going to guide them and answer any questions. Always ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you need the answer for something, seek out those people that are going to help you answer those things.
All right. So talking about mentors, let's talk about the daddy mentor.
Right.
So I know, Jacob, you did some
Don't
prior
call me
research.
Daddy,
All right. So why don't you give us some of the advice that you're giving your kids, and maybe some of the advice your kids want from you?
Yeah, I did a little bit of prep work in advance of this conversation, and I talked with my kids and asked them what are some of the things that I've told them that they think are particularly useful. What are some of the things that they've heard from me that they think they would like for some of their peers to reflect? One of the things that they shared, first of all, learn to cook. That was one for my 11-year-old. Also to listen to music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and 2000s, in addition to current music, since 2010. Also, really to be inclusive and respectful of all people, sort of regardless of their experiences. This is all going back to the sort of just be a good person type of experiences, and type of advice that they were giving. Actually, develop independence and work and play. That was one that I really, appreciated from my son, who sort of took a moment to say, I could do a little better job of that, of not always wanting to play with someone or with a device for that matter. I think that's something that we've talked about a little bit, kind of offline, is the importance of being in the physical world, not just necessarily living in your screen.
So, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, you have 2 children, yes?
That's true, 2 boys.
So now let's switch it over to Brooke, going from Jacob mentoring 2 children to Brooke teaching maybe 30 plus kids in a class. Can you provide some context in how you mentor them, or how they seek mentors?
I really do try to get them to be that independent. I have noticed a lot of my students tend to be really dependent on getting back feedback for every little thing. Is this right? Is this right? Is this right? And so I'm really trying to help them gain that independence and self-confidence in themselves, because if I'm telling them, yes, that's right, yes, or no, that's wrong for every little thing, when I grade it, it's obviously going to be 100. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to tell them, no, trust yourself. You need to be able to trust what you believe, what you're doing. And I also wanted to say that I tell my students that it's okay to fail. That helps you learn, and that helps you learn to be more confident in what you're doing, and helps you learn what mistakes you did and what you can do to correct them. And I tell them all the time, don't be afraid to fail. Failing is just one step to you being more successful.
So let's flip this. We'll go from mentor to mentee. Maybe Jessica, have you had a mentor in your life, or somebody who's guided you, and how's that relationship formed?
Absolutely. My mentor, her name is Amy Jo Carpenter. She's actually the faculty advisor for my university. She started off as my we have like a university class where all freshmen have to take. She was their instructor for their class, and just having that connection with her, she's actually guided me through a lot of my college career. Just with her networking experience, her telling me to get out and take those chances, things I wouldn't have done as a freshman, let alone, but just going out and just trying to, build my network early. She's always expressed that it's never too late to start. You start early.
Wow. So I know, Adonis, you're a soccer player. So has your coach been a mentor, or have you found a mentor in academia?
That's a great question, LJ. And honestly, I've had mentors in both aspects. Yes, my coach, he's a major influence in my life. He's helped me build a character that it's just, you have to play a sport to honestly to know what I'm out there kind of trying to say. But he has guided me. He's watched me grow from a boy to a young man, is what I like to say. He took the time to invest his time. A little bit of him now resonates with me wherever I go, and I always remember that. And on the academia side, I've had a great support system throughout my college career. Like I previously stated, some people took the time to actually get to know me. They saw something in me that I personally didn't see, and they helped me overcome my fears and challenges that I didn't want to take on. They helped me get out of my comfort zone, and I'm thankful for that. And my advice would be, find that individual, ask the right questions, get out there, and there's people that are more than willing to take the time and invest on you. It's all about giving back.
So you mentioned asking the right question. So let's talk about what is the right question. And it might be interesting to hear from Brooke, because you're a teacher. What should students ask?
That's, to me, what Jessica said earlier is that there is no wrong question. I accept all questions, and I talk to my students on a personal level and an academic level. So to me, it's just what you are looking for in life and what you're trying to figure out right then and there. So it can be anything from something very personal to something that has to do with a career. I don't think there is a wrong question.
Okay, so let's say, I'm a young high school student, and, I have a really itching question that I might be embarrassed to ask. How or who should I go to, and how should I go about asking this question? What are your recommendations as a teacher?
Well, normally my girls will come to me about any embarrassing questions, and I will talk to them, obviously one-on-one, not in front of the class, during their free time. And depending on what the subject matter is, I suggest either going to a counselor or going to an assistant principal, or I can work on it with them themselves. Or depending on what the content is, maybe go to their friend and kind of give them advice on how to speak to their friends, or how to speak to another teacher if they're having issues with another teacher, and things like that.
LJ, we've had some great experiences today and over the course of the programs that the community's put together for all of you guys. And one of the big things that I think we should all kind of carry with us, and I think that students from Gen Z should bear in mind, as we all should, that people are people. We had the chance today to sit down with some pretty important folks, some pretty high profile individuals, and I think that we could have a conversation with them. And that's something that, doesn't necessarily matter where you come from. It doesn't really matter sort of where you are on your path to success. Finding people who are where you want to be, who kind of share a similar spirit and are willing to work with you and help you get to where you want to be, and seek out those mentors in that respect. I think that's just because they've accomplished something doesn't mean they cease to be people. They if they're a good person, they want to help others out.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jacob.
Yes, and just to piggyback off what you said, Jacob, I think it's very important to know that have that investment in yourself and want to take the next step, because if you don't invest in yourself, who else is going to invest in you?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to thank my co-host, LJ, and I also want to thank our guests, Adonis, Brooke, and Jacob. I also want to thank our listeners out there. We are truly seeking to change the conversation that revolves around the millennial generation, and your support and feedback will only help us to grow and prosper as the generation evolves. If you would like to learn more about who we are and what we do, please visit nationalmillennialcommunity.com. We would love to continue this conversation with you.